The actors in this story represent an impossible geopolitical combination: a laywoman spiritual leader from China, monks and nuns from Taiwan, the Dalai Lama and Tibet, and Canada's Prince Edward Island. More than a decade ago, the Buddhist group Bliss and Wisdom moved its headquarters from Taiwan to Prince Edward Island. Thousands of monks, nuns, monastic students, and their families have immigrated to PEI. However, local residents found their aggressive land grabbing and lack of transparency troubling. Yet the island's political establishment vouched for the group and called it an immigrant success story. Security experts say immigration fraud has made Canada one of the preeminent security concerns for North America. How does the story of a Buddhist group in Canada's smallest province highlight the most alarming geopolitical threat of our time? Hello, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I'm Lei. In the last episode, I gave you the full background of the Buddhist group Bliss and Wisdom and the controversies involving its spiritual leader, Mary Jing, aka Master Zhenru, who is a laywoman from mainland China. Buddhists elsewhere find pictures of the organization's male monks worshipping a laywoman and fighting to carry her handbag shocking. Former abbots accuse her of sexual misconduct and money laundering. What I'm wondering about is how Mary Jing has turned a Buddhist organization with humble roots into a multi-million-dollar business. According to Canada Revenue Agency data, 4 registered charitable institutions tied to Mary Jing had a combined asset of 278 million Canadian dollars as of December 2021. This number doesn't include affiliated organizations not directly under her name, nor businesses operated by the monks in PEI and elsewhere in the world, or incremental growth in assets since 2021. Public information shows the group has about 100,000 followers worldwide, with 60,000 in Taiwan and 30,000 in China. Each follower would have donated generously, so the organization's headquarters have a 9-digit balance sheet. What's puzzling to many is how Mary Jing has built the largest male monk community in Taiwan and China, mostly young adults and children. Unlike in Thailand and Tibet, where sending children to monasteries is part of the culture, child monks are extremely rare in China and Taiwan. In Chinese culture, sons are endowed with the responsibility to carry on the family lineage. Sending sons to be trained as monks is socially unpopular. However, there's one condition in which Chinese parents are willing to send their boys to a monastery, that is, if it helps the family immigrate to North America. A quick study of Bliss and Wisdom's financial data on CRA's website reveals that despite its massive amount of assets, the organization has a minimal operating budget and is highly profitable. In 2021, the 4 organizations tied to Mary Jing had assets of $278 million and total revenues of $49 million against an expense of only $12 million. The profit margin is 75%, which is very high for nonprofits. With enormous assets, extremely high profits, and a tiny budget, Bliss and Wisdom seems to be a lucrative investment business rather than a charity organization. So how many people has the organization brought to Canada? No one knows for sure. How many monks and nuns are on the island at any one time? That's also unknown, and this itself is a problem. Some local people estimate about 2,000 monks and 1,000 nuns may be on the island. They say if the plans of the order come to fruition, the number could swell to tens of thousands if students, friends, business and religious affiliates, and families are included. But the problem is that the island only has a population of 174,000. But Mary Jing couldn't have been running an immigration ring alone. Who are her benefactors and helpers? Here enters a mysterious celebrity, the best-dressed man on the island, a Chinese immigrant named Frank Zhou, or Zhou Xuan in Chinese. Frank Zhou has been in the business of selling Canada to the Chinese, while selling the Chinese to Canada, and he has profited from successfully aligning local PEI political power with Chinese funds. He was authorized to handle the Provincial Nominee Program, or PNP, for Chinese immigrants in the mid-2000s, and his Sunrise Immigration and Investment business was one of the half-dozen PNP intermediary companies licensed by the province to help immigrants get through the application review system. For more than a decade, Zhou has been the czar of Chinese immigration on PEI. Zhou's company approves the immigration of many Chinese through PNP programs. Mary Jin's organization was attracted to PEI because of the program, which allows wealthy newcomers to fast-track their way to permanent resident status in Canada. Today, Zhou's Sunrise Group includes Sunrise Innovation, Sunrise Consulting, Sunrise Immigration and Investment, Sunrise Capital, Sunrise Logistics, and an international language school called Study Abroad Canada. According to one independent investigator, Kevin Arsenault, the fact that a large number of land deals for Bliss and Wisdom have been completed and that the inner workings of the deals are not known to outsiders is related to Frank Zhou's role on the government side of the equation. Frank Zhou described himself as Justin Trudeau's senior advisor, who has accompanied Trudeau and former Prime Minister Stephen Harper to visit China. Zhou also took former PEI Premier Robert Gies 4 times on trips to China from 2011 to 2014, and accompanied Gies' successor, Wade McLaughlin, to China in 2018. The premiers from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec all took a trip to China with Zhou by their side. Zhou is a third-generation Red Princeling, the offspring of CCP senior leaders who enjoy privileges that ordinary Chinese don't. His paternal grandfather is a Red Army veteran, Zhou Zhigao, who was the deputy commander of the Ningxia military region. During the early days of the Communist Revolution, he was the chief of a secret service battalion of the 18th Red Army Division. There's a monument dedicated to his grandfather. The coats that the senior Zhou wore are on display at a museum in China. In a court deposition related to ongoing litigation against the PEI government by various private sector parties about an e-gaming scheme, Frank is described by a government insider as someone whose mother is a general in the Chinese military. Frank Zhou is also close to the current CCP leadership. He and his wife were invited to the official celebration of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China in 2019. They attended the reception at the Great Hall of the People and the celebration ceremony in Tiananmen Square. The couple's invitation to the event by Xi Jinping was celebrated as news on Frank's company website, as well as that of his high school in China. Frank Zhou's connections in China and the ability to bring in Chinese cash have made him highly sought after in PEI. According to a local source, Zhou is the godfather to a former PEI premier's son and a business partner in a venture in China with the partner of another former premier. He has full access to the highest echelons of PEI's political leadership and business community.
Premier, you and your spouse and Frank Zhou and his spouse have been business partners for a long, long time. And you know this. You took Anna Green Gables to China with Frank Zhou. He is the one who is pushing through the most immigrants who aren't staying. So 33% of his clients aren't staying, and he's putting through the second highest number of immigrants in the program. Think of that. And you let him stay there. Is your cozy business relationship with Frank Zhou the reason why you allow him to stay there, or is it because you're desperate for the money that he's bringing into this province through crooked dealings?
Because of Frank Zhou, the PEI government has, for many years, bent over backward to accommodate Bliss and Wisdom Monastery on the island. To facilitate the group's registration of an international academy as a vehicle to grant international student visas to its monastics, The PEI government changed the Private Schools Act to remove the requirement to teach in English. Local officials have successfully removed obstacles for Bliss and Wisdom, such as rat infestation problems and conflicts with local communities, as well as keeping an investigation by the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission from the public. Kevin Arsenault calls Frank Zhou both the fuel and the engine for immigration growth on PEI. A whistleblower who worked daily with Bliss and Wisdom to handle all the local real estate deals for them told Arsenault that whenever Frank Zhou came to the monastery, it was like God descended, a tears and ring-kissing type of experience. However, with the tension in the Taiwan Strait escalating and the Chinese Communist Party's influence operations around the world being exposed, questions about the activities and concerted cooperation between Frank Zhou and Mary Jane are brewing with intensity on Prince Edward Island. People's concerns seem to be well substantiated. In May 2018, the PEI government discovered that 566 Chinese nationals used the same motel address as their permanent address on the island from 2008 to 2015 to qualify for immigration application. Local authorities charged two Chinese brothers who operated the motel with fraud. Statistics alone indicate that there may be some serious abuses of immigration programs in PEI. A January 2023 report by CBC found that PEI's immigration retention rate is pathetically low when compared with other Canadian provinces. Of the immigrants who settled in PEI in 2010, only 15.6% lived on the island 5 years later. This number improved to 28% in 2020. By comparison, Ontario's immigration retention rate is 92%, and Quebec is 80%. Even Nova Scotia and New Brunswick had retention rates of 55 and 48%. PEI's abnormally low retention rate tells me that the island is an easy entry point for people with ulterior motives. But the question is, who are these people and where do they go? The National Post reported on June 23, 2023, the shocking findings of an internal audit by Canada's Immigration National Security Screening Program. 46% of the more than 7,000 foreign nationals flagged by security agencies to the Immigration Department for ties to serious offenses, including war crimes, espionage, and terrorism, were allowed to take up residency in Canada between 2014 and 2019. According to an upcoming book co-authored by former military intelligence officer Scott McGregor titled The Mosaic Effect: How the Chinese Communist Party Started a Hybrid War in America's Backyard, immigration fraud has allowed CCP agents to walk right into America's backyard through Canada. They created a base of operations along the 49th parallel, the line that divides the U.S. and Canada, the largest undefended border in the world, then set about methodically building a united front network of individuals and groups under the influence or control of the CCP. McGregor's book is expected to cover the issues with PEI's immigration programs and should bring new information. It has a quote from an undercover American intelligence agent. Canada has now become one of the preeminent security concerns of the U.S. government. I think it's time politicians like Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden recognize that open-door immigration policy is one of the biggest national security threats. The officials on Prince Edward Island should wake up now to address their citizens' concerns. That's all for today. I thank you for watching, and please share this video and subscribe.